Well, hello again, everyone. Today we're going to introduce leading tone chords into the mix. We've already got ones and fives and fours and twos. Let's bring in some sevens here. Uh, some notational issues. Let's talk about the triad first. Leading tone is, of course, a diminished triad. Wants to resolve to tonic, and that way it's very much like a dominant chord. Matter of fact, when we talk about chord class, the idea that the seventh chord is sort of an honorary dominant. That's very much the case. We'll do it that way so we see the small circle here. Let's just do a straight resolution of 7 diminished 7 to 1 chord, and we'll talk about the problems that are inherent with it. So if we start with this, let me do one thing here just to get this all set up so it's locked in here. So 7 diminished 7 chord, or 7 diminished chord, resolving to 1, our bass line is going to look like this. And being that these are both root position chords, this is going to be kind of cast in stone that way. So let's talk about voice leading and proper doubling. Diminished chords, you don't want to double the root. Why not? That's right, I can hear you talking through the screen. You do not want to double the root because the root is a tendency tone. It's a leading tone and wants to move up. What pitches do we need? We need B in this key, and we'd also need D and F. Which one should we double? Probably want to double the third of the chord. We've always been told in diminished triads it's the best one to double. So let's perhaps do something like this for the soprano. Just notice how it's resolving here. For the tenor, and then for the alto, we'll do a close voicing here. Notice I'm doubling the D, and I'm actually doubling the D right there. Notice also how the voice leading works. Maximum sloth. I can't have both D's going to C because that would be parallel octaves. Maximum sloth usually means that this resolves as a doubled root, doubled third. And that's not necessarily ideal. We might be able to subvert some voice leading, perhaps, if the F is in an inner voice, and do something like that. But that's dangerous because it does create a lot of parallel motion. So it's probably safer to do it that way. But it's not all that common to see 7 diminished triad in root position. We are more likely to see something like this. 7 diminished 6 to 1. Let's see what that might look like. Well, 7 diminished 6 going to 1 means what note is in the bass? That's right. D is in the bass. And it's going to resolve down that way because they're both root position chords. We want to double the D where possible. So let's jump in a tenor. But I can't have it go to a C2, so it'll end up like that, which is, of course, what happened here. Let's put a wide spacing here. F in the soprano, it will want to pull down to E, so we still end up with this doubling. And then if we put the B in the alto, because we still need a root here somewhere, we end up with something like that. So we still end up with a doubled root, doubled third. If I flip these, however, and let's say I move the F, E down to the alto, once it's in an inner voice like this, so I want to put this one down in the alto, so I need to change layers here, which I'll just do it this way. Once we put the F, E in an inner voice, perhaps we can have a little more fun with it. And then put the B, C. Leading tone wants to do that, so we're kind of stuck with that, unless we're, say, in the middle of a phrase, we might be able to thwart it a little bit. But this, you could actually get away with. Now you're looking at this and saying, but these are fourths, and parallel fourths are okay, but if I were to invert them, they'd be parallel fifths. No, they wouldn't, because if you look, B to F is a diminished fifth or a augmented fourth, and G to C is a perfect fourth. If you invert it, it's a perfect fifth. So it's still okay. Now, you might run into the occasional 7 diminished 6-4, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about that one. Let's instead concentrate on doing the same thing in a minor key. Matter of fact, let's just skip over the idea of the 7 diminished root position. That's not very common. Let's instead do a 7 diminished first inversion chord. So basically this progression right here. And let's see what it looks like in a minor key. So we apply this to G here, and of course this has to be lowercase because we're in minor. Well, what is a 7 diminished 6 chord in the key of G? What's the root going to be? The root will be F sharp. What note is going to be in the bass? That's right, A. And it's going to step down like that. So let me pull this over here. This is how it's going to get set up. And then what do we need here? Well, we need an F sharp. We need to have it somewhere. How about in the alto? As the leading tone, it wants to push up. And so we need a C and a doubled A somewhere. So the smoothest possible motion gives us this. And listen to that. And you can see the outline of the old counterpoint, species counterpoint endings here, with one voice at the leading tone moving up by a step, one voice stepping down to form an octave with that other voice moving in contrary motion. So there are vestiges of stepwise contrary motion at work here. We're never very far from species counterpoint. Now, what if we did something like adding sevenths to it? Well, let's have a couple different opinions on that matter. Again, they're usually in first inversion. What are the two types of seventh chords that we're dealing with? Well, in a major key, we end up not with a fully diminished, but rather a half diminished seventh. Because if you think about it, in the key of D, your seventh chord is going to be C sharp, E, G, and B. Diminished triad, minor seventh. C sharp to B is going to be a minor seventh. So this is a half diminished 7 chord here in first inversion. So let's work through that one. Well, let's start with the bass line here. C sharp is the root, but it's 6/5, so we need an E in the bass, and it's going to step down like so. We still need a C sharp, a G, and a B. Now something interesting is going to happen here. Let's put the B in the tenor. I didn't mean to do it that way. Let's put the B in the tenor. And then let's put the C sharp in the soprano. And let's put the G in the alto. All right. Maximum sloth and tendency tones say the C sharp, being the root of the chord, wants to move to D in the soprano here. G, also being a tendency tone, 4th scale degree in a dominant type situation, wants to move out like that. Now, maximum sloth would also dictate that happened. Why is that a problem? Parallel fifths. So, in order to make this work, that is likely going to have to do something like that. And we still end up with the tripled root, unless we do something like that, in which case I'd want to put the leading tone in an inner voice. But you cannot have the B go to an A. Or, this is another possible solution. This is a little awkward, though, because no matter how we slice, we're going to run into a thing here. So let's just not even consider the possibility that the G could go to an A, because that means someone else is going to have to go to an F sharp. And unless we want to do something like this, you can see how that's not going to work out very smoothly. At this point, we've sacrificed just a little too much. So I think our best bet is to take that approach. That's going to be the only way we avoid a parallel fifth. What if this were in root position? If this were in root position as a seventh chord, let's see what happens there. So bass is now C sharp to D. And we just stack up the other. We could probably just swap out the tenor and bass, or soprano and bass essentially. And let's see if that works. So now in this case, I was actually able to pull the B down to an A because, you know, I saw B and E in this. Here they're voiced as a fourth. And that's okay. When you voice them as a fourth, parallel fourths are fine. Parallel fifths are not. But this is E to B is voiced as a fourth here and not a fifth. This is only an issue when we are in a major key and we have the half diminished 7 chord. Or if we're in a minor key, for example, we have a 2 half diminished. Because of the nature of the half diminished chord, it can be problematic. If we're in a minor key and we're working with the leading tone, then it's not a half diminished chord anymore. It's a fully diminished. And that might look something like this. So we're in the key of E minor now. What's the root of the 7 diminished chord in the key of E minor? That's right, D sharp. And you have to remember to sharp it because you're in minor, just as you had to remember to sharp the F up here in the G minor example. But D sharp will not be in the bass. Instead, F sharp will be. And it will step down like that. So let's voice this out here. We need a D sharp, an F sharp, which we got, an A, and a C natural, and that's why it's fully diminished, because D sharp to C is a diminished seventh. And let's just voice it like this here. Let's put our D sharp up here in the soprano. Change the layers here. And that's going to actually expand out to the octave, the way we expect. In the alto, let's put the A. It's probably going to do something like this. And the tenor, let's do something like that. We don't have to worry about the parallels here because, again, diminished fifth going to perfect fifth. That's acceptable. Let's play what the, well, let me put the other one up, then we'll play what all of these sound like here. All right, if we wanted a root position fully diminished 7, I'm afraid it would do that, then we have to deal with D sharp in the bass, which is fine. You just basically we're flipping out the bass and soprano again. We'll end up with this kind of motion. Tendency tone, leading tone still moves up. The chordal seventh still moving down in all of these cases. The only time the chordal seventh does not move down a diminished chord is when it's half diminished in an inversion like this and voice with a perfect fifth. So there's that to keep in mind. Let's see what each of these sound like. So starting from the top of the page here. And then the minor key version. And then what the half diminished 7 sounds like an inversion and root. And then the minor key version, fully diminished. Oops, I see what I did there. Nobody caught that I got the wrong pitch in the soprano. Let's fix that. Hey man, we're just doing this on the fly. Things happen. interesting sound there, though, when we did it that way. So let's listen to the last two again, just because. Get those right here. We'll drill down a little farther. We'll look at perhaps what happens if you use a second inversion, half diminished or fully diminished seventh chord. Some of the things that might arise there, and even third inversion, fully and half diminished seventh chords. Some interesting things can happen. In the meantime, look at this, and the next video we'll talk about second inversion triads and the unique role that they play in functional harmony. Thanks as always for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Have a great day.